Greetings and welcome to another Creative Mornings, an ad hoc show that looks at all the topics in the orbit of the world of creativity and what it means to be creative. Let's give a few minutes for people to join the stream. I'll go through my little preamble of what Creative Mornings is. Each morning I kind of take a little dip into the world of creativity, the creative endeavor, whether it's art, music, animation, video, whatever it might be, whatever I feel like discussing at that particular moment in time. So hopefully that motivates or inspires someone to explore their own creativity, or it gives an artist, a new tip or a technique to try. With many of us still in some kind of isolation, it's a good time to take a little spare time we might have to take advantage of the spare time and explore our creativity together. So with that being said, today I'm not really going to demonstrate any particular program or creative tool. I want to discuss maybe some of the less glamorous sides of being creative, specifically being professionally creative. If you have been a freelancer or been in agency life, or you've been in-house for in a marketing department or something, then you'll probably will have come across at least one, if not all, of these scenarios that I'm going to sort of discuss today. And being a professional creative definitely has its pitfalls, and it's good to sort of know them and be ready to identify them when they're happening, because it's easy to feel taken advantage of, I suppose, after the fact, if you aren't able to recognize them in the moment and steer the discourse in a mutually favorable direction, rather than one in which, creatives are sometimes seen as a commodity or lesser people of the world. Sometimes it can feel like that. So you have to stand your ground and, like I say, learn to recognize some of these scenarios. First of all, I think what I'll do a little case study of a client I worked with recently. No names will be mentioned, and it was for a product that's may or may not be coming to fruition. But the problems that occurred out of that relationship were entirely my own fault. And again, this is something that I should have recognized and learned from sort of many experiences. Let me just pull up. So I met with a potentially new client who had found me. They called me. We had several conversations over the phone, and they called me into a meeting to discuss in greater detail what they wanted from me. So that was great, and it had been a bit of a slow couple of months, and I was eager to meet a new client. They were local, so I was really, really keen to meet with these people. I went to meet them, and they had a great product, and I sort of really believed in it, and it started a process of exploration. Now, we sat down and we discussed like what they wanted, and there were many steps along the path to reach their objectives. They had nothing at that point, no branding, barely a product name, no website, and they wanted all of that. So it was, let's start from the beginning, let's start with some branding, and then we can do some social sort of releases, teasers, and we can then build up everything, as we go along. So I started out after that meeting going home and just doing some initial sketches, and I wanted to get the ball rolling, like I said, because I was eager, and two, they seemed to be ready to launch. They wanted to launch the product soon. They'd been developing it for a year, and they really wanted to launch soon. So let's get the ball rolling. And there was the problem. In my eagerness to jump in and start giving them something, I neglected to do the most important aspect of being a creative for hire, and that is get a signed contract that details every aspect of deliverable. And that's important because we're trying to match expectation, and what my expectations, what I'm to deliver, and the client's expectation of what they're to receive. So in my eagerness, I went back and did some sketching. You can see here, these are just real quick thumbnail sketches, just some scribbles, initial stream of consciousness stuff, just to get an idea of what they wanted. It was like a skateboard product. They were looking to reach the skateboard community. It was like extreme sports. It was that sort of aesthetic. So I went home and did some research and looked at various other sort of skateboard type products and skateboard oriented companies. And just come up with a few scribbles to give them. So presenting those to them, and feedback was less than overwhelming. No, we want to reach soccer moms. We don't really want to reach skateboarders. We don't really. So the information I had gathered was incomplete after an hour meeting. Obviously, that still falls on me to retrieve the correct information, but and this is where relationship building and communication is key with your client. Getting the relevant information, and sometimes you feel like you've been driving around the block and you are presented with information later that should have been presented immediately, and I'll get to some of these points in a little while. So after some, and I also did some typography, shortlisting fonts I thought might be good for their product and that sort of thing. So, I put in a certain amount of work before it even occurred to me I should get a signed contract, and it was probably 3 or 4 hour to 2 hour meetings and several pages of preliminary work. And they were getting to the stage where we're talking about this. We're talking about having you come in and work on site for a couple of hours every day. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, you've got a great product. You've got a great branding strategy. You've got, you know the way forward. We need to nail down money. And this is something we had sort of tangentially approached. What's your budget? Oh, not very much. We're a startup and so on, but no hard numbers were ever discussed. So after that meeting, I started to get the feeling that they were looking for someone who really believed in the product and would be getting in on the ground floor and do the work for free. Well, that's obviously not an option. I worked for a .com startup and was paid in stock options, and I made that mistake once because you can't put food on the table with stock options, especially, it's not up to the hired gun to take the risk. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you absorb that risk. If it's your product you believe in, you absorb that risk. It's not up to the artist, to the creative who's helping you reach your goal. It's not up to them to absorb the risk. And I feel that was what this particular client was looking for. And again, being in the industry for so long, I should have recognized those signs and known when to A, walk away, or B, have had a contract prepared. It should have been the first thing I did. Once I presented them with a contract, it was radio silence. I didn't hear from them for a month, and when I did, it was to tell me that they'd gone in a different direction and because I'd been emailing them and calling and were not able to get hold of them. And it was basically, don't call us anymore, don't contact us anymore, we've gone in a different direction. So the second half, that's the case study of real life practical experience. And I'm going to go through a list of scenarios, many of which occurred in this most recent sort of negative client interaction I had. And over the years, over 25 years of doing this, I've encountered all of these many, many times. As I said earlier, has anyone who's worked in this industry for any amount of time have heard one of these excuses or reasons why they can't get paid, or why the job, maybe expectations weren't met. Communication is key. It's about managing expectations. That's all this comes down to, and that's the major takeaway from today's discussion. So let's look at the ugly side, the business side of creativity. Let me just sip. Talking is thirsty business. It's much easier just presenting Photoshop on a screen. So, first thing, pay me. Pay me for my time and not for the pixels I deliver. That's what it comes down to. Pay me. Specifically, if you call me, I am now on the clock. I didn't come courting you. Well, maybe I did. There's maybe an argument to be made that I was courting you, me being the artist, whoever that might even be you. It might be me. It might be all artists, and you being the client or whomever that person might be or organization be that begins this interaction. You called me, so the onus is on you to pay me. You initiated the partnership. That means you need to pay me for my time. Whether you like what you receive or not, whether you didn't like the process, there is a process of, like, Michelangelo didn't paint the Sistine Chapel in one go. It was a lengthy process. The statue of David was not just chip. Oh, look, there it is. It's beautiful. It's a lengthy process of chipping away and materializing the inherent beauty underneath, right? And that's what any graphic project, any creative project is, whether it's music, whether it's writing. There's a series of iterations that go through. There's a process, and if you don't like where you are at that point in the process, maybe the process isn't complete. We're whittling away. If you don't like the statue of David when only the top shoulder has been exposed, give it some time for the process to complete. Everything will be revealed. That being said, the process takes time, and you're going to pay me for that time if you want me to go through it with you, if you want me to hold your hand through it, if you want me to consult you as you go through it yourself. Pay me for my time and not for my pixels. The pixels are a result of my time, your feedback, and everything else involved in the creative process. So it's my time you're paying for and not for the end result. It's up to the process to reveal the end result that you want. And it's my goal. It's not my goal just to produce rubbish that you don't want. It's my goal to do what's best for your company, your brand, your product. And that brings me to my next point. Trust me, I'm the expert. So, yes, that may be a little flamboyant, a little arrogant, but you hired me. If you know better than me how to do this, then by all means do it yourself. You hired me because you want someone to help you with the process. Then trust me. You went to the trouble of hiring me, and I'm sure you vetted a number of different candidates to help you in the process. You vetted me, you selected me, you're agreed to pay me to help you to do this. Then trust me. Trust when I say I know what I'm doing. If you can't do that, then the relationship is built on a foundation of sand. It's not going to go anywhere. If you are always second guessing or questioning why this was chosen over that, then we're never going to get anywhere. If you don't think that a creative person who is specialized in a given field can help you with that aspect of your marketing or your storytelling or whatever it might be, then you might as well just do it yourself. If you're going to hire an expert, if you're going to hire a specialist to do that, then you have to trust, A, that you've hired the right person for the job. If not, then cut them free, then don't hire them anymore. Otherwise, just trust what they tell you. When they tell you blue, don't say, well, I like red. It's not about what you like. It's not about what your personal preference is. It's about blue works conceptually and thematically for this case. And it's not something that was arbitrarily decided upon. It was something that was come to through a process of elimination, of experience, of understanding the psychology of color or whatever it might be, typography, anything, any decision that's made in the creative process is not arbitrary. Everything is deliberate. So trust that those decisions that have been made for good reason, and take your personal preferences out of the equation. So next is, again, it's part of that managing expectations, managing the communication, getting the right information from a client. And that is for the client. If you're a client out there, I imagine I'm talking to other creatives, but if you're a client or a potential client, or if you've ever been in or will be in the situation where you're going to be hiring a creative, maybe you deal with creatives in a different department at your work, have a clear idea immediately before you call a creative, or at least simultaneously when you're going through that hiring and vetting process. Have a clear idea. My time is not yours to waste. And that means if you come into, say, a product branding or a corporate branding project, have an idea of what your messaging wants to be. Have an idea of what you want that to say, what you want to say about yourself or your company or your product to the world. Don't begin that process after you've hired the artist and then you say, oh no, I changed my mind. What I really thought was we want it to be more energetic. Oh no, I saw this thing on YouTube that was really, really nice and blue. No, I saw this advert on the side of a bus where they had a picture of the guy with his dog. I want ours to be like that. Don't chop and change your ideas because you keep seeing things that you like. Observe these things for a week, a month, however long, until you've got a firm idea in your head of what it is that you want your communication to be. When you've got that clear idea, then present that research, those ideas you've encapsulated to the artist you hire. Maybe you're hiring a musician to write a jingle. Oh, I want it to be rock. No, I want it to be more classical. Yeah, classical but without violins. Oh, let's add some timpani into the. What is it you want? Have a clear idea before you hire the creative to execute on it. It's not. My time is not yours to waste, because more often than not, you're going to be hired as a creative. You're going to be hired with a fixed budget. So if you have a budget of 1,000 or 2,000 or 500, if you have a budget, and then you come to that budget, you say, well, I'll give you an estimate of that amount because I think it will take me this many hours to produce this level of work with this degree of complexity. You present that estimate and it's agreed upon, and then the client starts changing, and it's a long-standing joke within the creative community that changes is spelled C-L-I-E-N-T. Client and changes are synonymous, and they're synonyms for the same experience in many cases. And of course, that's a joke, and there are many clients that have a very clear idea of what they want. Usually the bigger clients usually have a much clearer idea of what they want. Generally speaking, there are obviously exceptions to all rules. Anyway, so clients like to change things. They like to feel like they have an input, and that's of course absolutely right. And it speaks to the last thing about, I said, trust me, I'm an expert. That's also, there's give and take on all of these bullet points I'm talking about here. But generally speaking, don't make big drastic changes when I'm on a fixed budget, because now my hourly is going down to pennies because we've gone through this process 14 times and you still haven't found something you like. Mostly because you haven't really thought consciously about what it is you want. If you sat down and thought, well, I saw the thing on the bus with the man and his dog, and I saw the YouTube thing that was all blue, so I think what we'll do, we should have a blue thing with the man and his dog. You've summarized, you've collected this series of inputs that you think will work for your brand or your messaging, and we can then collate them into one concise message or finished piece of work that is inherently you. So have a clear idea at the beginning, because my time is not yours to waste. The next point, this next point dovetails into that previous one a little bit as well. Oh, you have a style guide. That's nice. How many artists out there am I speaking to who have got 3/4 of the way through a project for a project manager in a marketing company, a marketing department for a company X, and then 3/4 of the way through, you've gone through maybe one round of revisions, and then they come back and say, oh no, the font is wrong, and the color blue can't be used because our brand color is this font and this color. And you sat there in your chair and you're thinking, why are you telling me this now? We are 4 weeks into this process. We have gone through rounds of revision. We've been in touch with you along the way. And now you present a corporate style guide. Present the corporate style guide. Again, this happens so many times. Clients or project managers on behalf of the client love to jump ahead of the game. Vet the creatives, hire the creatives, get them working on the project, agree on the budget, and now, just change it all because now we've found the style guide. I wasn't working on this. I was working on some other project for some other department, and now this is back on my radar, and now I've got to. Meanwhile, you've wasted about 60 hours of your time that has to be completely redone. And that's fine if you're on the clock. That's fine if you're a in-house artist and you 9 to 6 every day and you don't work overtime, and you get paid the same regardless of deadline or the hours you put into this. You can waste 60 hours in that scenario quite easily. If you're a freelancer, or if you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business, a small agency, you can't afford to waste 60 hours just because the person on the other end couldn't be bothered to do their due diligence of having the clear idea, of having the materials to distribute to the invested parties, the hired creatives in this case. You have a style guide, or if you think you have a style guide, if you have a marketing department at your company, consult them before you hire the artist. Because, oh, that's nice, would have been good to know. All right, and the final point, you've probably heard this. If you're an artist, you've probably heard this so many times, especially if you're a freelancer. And this definitely sort of circles back around to my experience with this most recent negative experience with the client I had. And that is, if it's so easy, do it yourself. How many times have you been asked, oh, you can just knock this out. I want a video intro that's got some flares and some text that comes in, but I want the blue thing with the man and his dog. I want them to sort of fly in pixels and then join. Yeah, it should be fairly straightforward. It shouldn't take you more than a couple of hours. Basically, I've only got the budget for a couple of hours, but what I want is a Steven Spielberg level of production value. So, and this is a similar point here. You get from clients all the time, it's, I want a Ferrari, but I've only got the budget for a Ford. Well, if you can only afford a Ford, then what you're going to end up driving is a Ford. No, but I really want a Ferrari. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that with car dealerships. It doesn't work like that with hired creatives. Pay me for my time. That's what it comes down to. So you'll hear all kinds of excuses when you're getting resistance on either getting paid or either when you're preparing, you present a budget, you present an estimate. Oh, we went in a different direction. Doesn't matter. Just pay me. My time is my time. I followed your directions and I put in the time to give you what you said you wanted. But we went in a different direction. We don't like anything we saw. Doesn't matter. I put in the time. Pay me. I followed your directions and I gave you what you said you wanted. Just pay me for my time. Oh, but we never saw anything we liked. We went in a different direction, and the project is off now. Anyway, the project is dead. We're not going to be moving forward. Doesn't matter. I'm not invested in your product or your project or your movie or your album. You hired me to take time. Pay me. But this should only have taken you a couple of hours. Well, if it was that easy, then why didn't you do it yourself? There's an inherent thought that, especially but I think back in the old days, when I say the old days, I mean like the 60s, when Saul Bass was hand painting his beautiful type-driven works of art. In that era, in the 60s and the 70s, pre-digital, when artwork was predominantly handmade. Artists were respected and revered a lot more than they are now. Now it's digital. It's, Command D, the digital button. You just press that button and the software does it for you. You have the pixels flying in, the dog with the blue thing, and the type just comes over. It's just software. It's just digital. It just happens. Command D, right? Control Option M for just make something beautiful. No, it's still a creative process, and it still takes expertise to learn the software. It takes experience to know what does and what doesn't work. I worked for my first creative director out of college. In fact, I was an intern, a boutique design studio in central London, and he told me, and this is the words of wisdom, he told me, why he was charging, I don't know, 100, 500 pounds an hour for his, but it only took you half an hour. And his argument was, no, it didn't take me just half an hour. It took me 50 years to come to this solution. That's what experience does. So why it only takes you half an hour to produce something that a beginner might take 4 hours to produce, it's those 50 years of experience that someone of his level was able to come to much quicker. So if it's so easy, do it yourself. If it's just software, you press the Command D keystroke. It's just software. If it takes no skill, then just do it yourself. Oh, but I haven't got the time to do it. I could do it if I wanted to do it, but I don't have the time. Now you're speaking my language. Time equals money. Just pay me for my time and not my pixels. Okay, that's been a little bit of a somewhat comedic rant, hopefully if you're a potential client or you work with creatives and you're trying to speak their language, maybe you can take something out of this. And overall, we're all trying to achieve the same goals, and that's make the world a more beautiful place. We're trying to create great artwork, we're trying to create fantastic movies, we're trying to create great music. But when creatives are for hire, it takes communication and it takes due diligence on both sides to make sure they perform to the highest, and that the end goal is the best it can be. The expectations are met from both sides of the equation. So if you're a creative or if you're a potential client or you work with creatives, take these points away and meditate on them for a while and see how we can improve the working world in the creative arena, make it better for all of us. All right, I hope this has been an interesting little debate. Any questions or comments, leave them in the comments to this video, or send me a message to one of these channels you can get hold of me at. And we will see you tomorrow, hopefully, for another creative morning. Whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, it's a beautiful spring morning here in California, and I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. Take care. Be creative.